The child saw the CEO's ring and whispered, "Mom wears the same one." His expression shattered instantly. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's incredible story. In the heart of Manhattan, where the city never sleeps, there was a small but elegant cafe that served as a backdrop to countless business deals, first dates, and celebrity sightings. It was a quiet Wednesday afternoon when Sarah, a single mother working as a waitress at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, stood at the counter tying her apron. She had been juggling her job with raising her young daughter, Lily, who was now at that age where her curiosity was insatiable, and her questions were sometimes difficult to answer. Sarah had always kept her personal life private, especially her past with a man she once loved, a man who had vanished from her life without a trace. Her heart ached whenever she thought about the past, but she had pushed it deep down, focusing only on providing the best life for Lily. As Sarah glanced around the cafe, preparing for the lunch rush, she couldn't help but feel the familiar weight of the long day ahead. Then, just as she was about to walk to her station, the door swung open, and in walked a man whose presence seemed to demand attention. The CEO of a major tech company, known for his sharp business acumen and ruthless persona, walked in. He had a reputation for being cold and distant, rarely engaging with anyone outside his circle of high-powered colleagues. He scanned the room and, with a slight nod, made his way to a table by the window. Sarah immediately recognized him. His face had graced the covers of business magazines more times than she could count. She had no desire to interact with him, but as the head waiter signaled her to take his table, she sighed and walked over. "Good afternoon, Mr. Harrison," she greeted him politely, her tone professional. He didn't look up immediately, absorbed in his phone. "I'll be your server today. Can I start you with something to drink?" He glanced up then, his sharp blue eyes meeting hers. For a moment, she felt something shift, but she quickly dismissed it. "I'll have a coffee, black," he replied curtly, returning to his phone. Sarah nodded and turned to leave, but just as she reached the door, Lily, who had been sitting quietly in the corner of the cafe, tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mommy," she whispered, "the man has the same ring as the one you wear." Sarah froze. The CEO's hand, which had been resting on the table, was adorned with a silver ring, one that looked strikingly familiar. It was the same design as the one she had worn for years, a ring she had received from someone she had once loved deeply. She turned around slowly, her heart racing as she looked at the man once again. She hadn't noticed the ring before, but now, it seemed to stand out like a beacon. Lily's innocent words had cracked open a door that Sarah had carefully sealed away for so long. Was it possible? Could this be the same man? The man who had disappeared from her life years ago? Her breath caught in her throat as she tried to process what was happening. She could feel her pulse quicken as she made her way back to the counter, her thoughts swirling in a haze of confusion and disbelief. She tried to focus on her work, but the image of the ring kept flashing in her mind. What did this mean? Was it really him? And why was he here, of all places, wearing the same ring that had been a symbol of their lost love? I had to stop myself from turning around and confronting him, but the words of my daughter, Lily, kept replaying in my mind. "Mom wears the same one." I had always kept that part of my life buried deep within me. My past with him, the CEO sitting at the table by the window, seemed like something that belonged to another time, another life. Yet, seeing him again, especially with the same ring, stirred something within me I thought I had long since suppressed. I forced myself to focus. I couldn't let my emotions get the better of me, not here, not in front of customers. My job was too important, and Lily needed me to be strong. But as I walked back to the counter, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was no coincidence. The ring he wore, the one that Lily recognized, was the same ring he had given me years ago, a symbol of promises made, promises broken. I had never expected to see him again, and certainly not in a place like this. I continued to work through the lunch rush, trying to push aside the flood of memories that had resurfaced with just a glance at his hand. It wasn't until later, when the rush had slowed, that I saw him again. He was sitting there, alone, as usual, staring out the window, the weight of the world on his shoulders, as it always had been. His face was different now, more worn, more tired. But that ring, that familiar symbol of our lost past, was still there. My heart ached as I glanced at him again, and a part of me wanted to go over and ask him what happened, why he disappeared. But I couldn't. I had built a life here, far away from him, far away from the pain he caused. The memories of our time together, the love we once shared, felt like they belonged to someone else. I could hear his voice in my head, the way he used to speak to me, full of warmth and promise. But where was that warmth now? Where was the man who had once held me close and told me he would never leave? My thoughts were interrupted when Lily walked up to me, her small hand reaching for mine. She looked up at me with innocent eyes, and for a moment, the world seemed to stand still. "Mom, I think he saw me," she said, her voice soft, almost unsure. I glanced over at the table where the CEO sat, and my heart skipped a beat. He was staring at Lily, his eyes locked on her, studying her with a kind of intensity that sent a chill down my spine. I quickly bent down to her level, trying to keep my voice calm. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" I asked, my heart racing. "He looked at me," she said quietly. "I think he knows me." I froze. Could it be possible? Could he have recognized her? After all these years? My mind raced. But before I could say anything, the CEO stood up from his seat, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the room. He walked toward us, his footsteps heavy with purpose. I felt a wave of panic rise within me. I had spent years keeping Lily safe from the world I left behind, from the man who once made me feel like I was everything, only to leave me without a word. He stopped in front of us, his piercing blue eyes locking onto mine. "Sarah," he said, his voice low but steady. "It's been a long time." I stood there, frozen. My heart pounded in my chest, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. I hadn't expected him to approach, not like this. Not now. But here he was, standing in front of me, just as tall and commanding as I remembered. "I didn't expect to see you again," I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked at me, a flicker of recognition passing through his eyes, but then he glanced at Lily. His gaze softened, and for a brief moment, I saw something in his expression I hadn't seen in years, a hint of regret, maybe even pain. "She looks just like you," he said quietly, his voice tinged with something I couldn't quite place. I felt my stomach tighten at his words. "She's my daughter," I said firmly, stepping protectively in front of Lily. He nodded slowly, as if processing the information. "I know," he said, his voice barely audible. "I've been looking for you both." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Looking for us? Why? After all these years, why now? My mind raced, but I kept my composure. "Why now?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of emotions I couldn't quite control. He seemed to hesitate before answering. "I never stopped thinking about you, Sarah. About both of you. But I was afraid." His words hung in the air between us, heavy with unspoken truths. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I couldn't. Not here, not in front of Lily. "I have to go," I said abruptly, my heart racing. I reached for Lily's hand, ready to walk away from this unexpected confrontation. But then he reached out, his hand gently touching my arm. "Please, Sarah," he said, his voice raw. "Just hear me out." I stood frozen for a moment, feeling his touch on my arm. The man I had once loved, the man who had disappeared from my life without a word, was standing right in front of me. I didn't know what to say. The years of silence between us seemed like a wall too thick to break down in just a few seconds. His voice had softened when he spoke to me, but there was still that cold edge of authority that had always been part of him. The CEO I had once known, the man who had conquered the business world with ruthless efficiency, was still there. But now, his eyes held something different, something vulnerable. I had built a life without him, a life that was simple but full of love, especially for Lily. I had learned to be strong for her, to protect her from a world that had once hurt me. And now, here he was, wanting to be part of that world again. But I wasn't sure if I could let him in. "I have to go," I repeated, my voice shaking slightly. I had said it once, but now it felt more like a plea than a statement. I wanted to run away from this, from the memories, from the pain. But I knew I couldn't. Not with Lily standing beside me, looking up at me with those innocent eyes. "Please, Sarah," he said again, his voice more urgent now. I've spent years thinking about you, about us. I made a mistake. I was afraid. His words hit me like a wave, and I felt the weight of them pressing down on me. Afraid? I asked, finally turning to face him fully. You were afraid? After everything, you just left. No explanation. No goodbye? And now you show up, with no warning, after all these years, telling me you were afraid. I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I was a different person back then, he said, his voice steady but low. I didn't know how to be the man I needed to be for you. For both of you. His words weren't enough. I wanted more. I needed more. What does that even mean? I asked, my voice trembling. You were everything I needed, and then you just disappeared. You didn't even try. I had to pick up the pieces on my own. I had to build a life for Lily, without you. And now you want to waltz back in and act like you can just pick up where we left off. His face hardened for a moment, but then softened again. I know I can't just pick up where we left off, he said, his voice almost a whisper. But I want to try. I want to make things right. For you. For Lily. I felt the room closing in on me. The memories of the past, the hurt, the disappointment, all came flooding back. I thought I had moved on, thought I had buried those feelings deep inside. But now, standing in front of him, I realized they were still there, just beneath the surface. Why should I believe you? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. After all this time, why should I believe you won't leave again? He reached out, his hand gently touching my shoulder. I flinched at first, but then I felt the warmth of his touch. Because I'm not going anywhere, he said quietly. I've spent years trying to make sense of what happened, and I know I was wrong. I want to make it right, Sarah. I want to be a part of your life again. A part of Lily's life. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of emotions. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream at him for leaving me, for abandoning us. But deep down, I knew I wasn't just angry. I was hurt. I was still in love with him. I don't know if I can let you back in, I said softly, looking down at Lily, who was still holding my hand. I don't know if I can trust you again. There was a long pause as he watched me, his eyes full of regret. I understand, he said finally. I know it's not going to be easy, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. He paused for a moment before continuing. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want the chance to prove to you that I can be the man you deserve, that I can be the father Lily deserves. His words pierced my heart, and for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what we had lost. But before I could respond, Lily tugged on my sleeve, her voice barely a whisper. Mom, is he my daddy? My breath caught in my throat, and I turned to look at her. Her innocent question hit me like a ton of bricks. I hadn't expected her to ask that, not now. Not like this. I looked up at the CEO, whose expression had gone completely still. His eyes were wide with surprise, but there was something else there too. Something softer. Yes, I said quietly, my voice breaking. Yes, he is. I stood there, frozen, as Lily's innocent question echoed in my mind. Is he my daddy? My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't prepared for this moment. The words I had spent years avoiding were now right in front of me. He was standing there, the man who had once been the love of my life, the man who had disappeared without a trace, and now, he was standing in front of my daughter. His expression was unreadable, but I could see the surprise, the shock in his eyes. He hadn't expected this, and I hadn't either. How could I have prepared for this moment? How could I have prepared Lily for this? The CEO, the man who had always been so composed and in control, was suddenly vulnerable. He bent down to Lily's level, his eyes softening as he looked at her. Yes, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. I am your daddy. Lily's face lit up with a smile, the kind of smile that could melt anyone's heart. She reached out to him, and for a moment, I saw the man I once knew, the man who had been so full of life, so full of promise. He hesitated for just a second before he wrapped his arms around her. I watched them, my heart heavy with a mixture of emotions. I had spent years building a life without him. I had made it work on my own, and now, suddenly, everything felt like it was about to change. He looked up at me, his expression softening. I know I've missed so much, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I can't change the past, but I want to be here for you both now. I want to make things right. His words cut through me like a knife. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to ask him how he could have left us for so long, how he could have just disappeared. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not in front of Lily. Not in front of the man who was now trying to be a part of our lives again. You don't understand, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. You don't understand how hard it's been. How much I've had to do on my own. And now, you just expect to walk back into our lives like nothing happened. He stood up slowly, his eyes searching mine. I know I don't have the right to ask you for forgiveness, he said. But I want to try. I want to make up for the time I've lost. For the things I didn't do. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, the regret. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I shook my head. It's not that simple, I said. You can't just come back into our lives and expect everything to be okay. You left. You left us. He looked down, guilt washing over him. I know, he said quietly. And I can't take that back. But I can try to make it right. I want to be here for you, Sarah. For Lily. I want to be a father to her. I want to be someone you can count on. I stood there, staring at him, trying to make sense of what was happening. Part of me wanted to believe him. Part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what had been broken. But another part of me, the part that had spent years alone, building a life for Lily and me, was afraid. Afraid of getting hurt again. Afraid of trusting him, only to have him leave again. You have to prove it, I said, my voice firm, though my heart was still torn. You have to prove that you're not going to walk away again. That you're not going to leave us when things get hard. He nodded slowly, his expression serious. I will prove it. I won't leave. I promise. His words hung in the air between us, and, for a moment, everything seemed to stand still. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this time would be different. But I had learned to protect my heart. To protect Lily. I don't know if I can trust you, I said softly, my voice trembling with emotion. I don't know if I can let you back in. It's not just about you and me anymore. It's about Lily. She deserves more than just promises. His eyes softened, and he reached out, gently taking my hand in his. I understand, he said quietly. I know I can't undo the past, but I'm here now. I want to be part of your life. Part of Lily's life. I looked down at our joined hands, feeling the weight of the decision I had to make. It wasn't just about forgiving him. It was about trusting him again. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that. I wasn't sure I could take that leap. But as I looked at him, at the man who had once been everything to me, I saw something in his eyes that I hadn't seen in years. Hope. Maybe we could make it work. Maybe we could rebuild what we had lost. But it would take time. And it would take more than just words. It would take action. You'll have to earn my trust, I said finally, my voice steady. And you'll have to earn Lily's, too. We've been through too much to just forget everything. He nodded, his face serious. I know, he said quietly. And I'll do whatever it takes. For you. For her. I stood there, feeling the weight of the moment hanging between us. He had promised, but I wasn't sure I could believe him. It had been so long, and the wounds of the past still stung. The promise he had made to stay, to be part of our lives again, seemed too fragile. Could I trust him again? Could I trust that this time he wouldn't leave when things got hard? And then there was Lily. She had heard everything, her small face filled with both hope and uncertainty. She was still too young to fully understand what was going on, but I could see the light in her eyes when she looked at him. She wanted to believe, just like I did. The next few days were filled with tension and hesitation. He kept his distance, allowing me to process everything at my own pace. I couldn't deny the change in him. He wasn't the same man who had left me all those years ago. His actions spoke louder than any of his words ever could. He showed up at the house, bringing dinner for the three of us. He spent time with Lily, listening to her stories about school and her friends. He tried, really tried, to be the father she deserved. But I was still on guard. I couldn't let my emotions get the better of me. I had to protect Lily, even if that meant protecting her from him. One evening, as I watched him playing a board game with Lily in the living room, I couldn't help but feel a tug at my heart. This was the man I had once dreamed of building a life with. But so much had changed. Could we really go back to the way things were? Could I let myself trust him again? I went to bed that night with so many questions and no answers. The following morning, I woke up to the sound of laughter coming from the kitchen. I walked in to find Lily sitting on his lap, her face glowing as she tried to teach him how to make pancakes. He had always been terrible at cooking, but seeing him try, seeing him laugh with her, made something stir inside me. This was the man I had fallen in love with. This was the man I had once believed in. As Lily ran off to play, I found myself standing there, facing him for the first time in a long while. You're doing great, I said quietly. He looked up at me, his eyes full of sincerity. I'm trying, he said softly. I know I can't change the past, but I want to make up for it. I want to be here for you. For both of you. His words were simple, but they carried weight. I could feel the sincerity in his voice, but I wasn't sure if that was enough. I'm not asking for perfection, I said, taking a step closer. But I need to see that this is real, that you're really here to stay. For her. I motioned toward Lily, who was playing with her toys in the next room. He nodded. I understand. And I'm not going anywhere. I know I have a lot to prove, but I'll do whatever it takes. He reached out for my hand, and for a moment, I hesitated. But then I took it. It was a small step, but it was a step in the right direction. I'll give you a chance, I said, my voice steady. But I need to see it. I need to see you be the man you say you want to be. He smiled, a genuine smile that made my heart skip a beat. I can do that, he said. And for the first time in years, I believed him. We spent the next few weeks slowly rebuilding the fragile trust between us. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, moments when I questioned if this was all just too good to be true. But then I would watch him with Lily, the way he would listen to her, the way he would comfort her when she was upset, and I would feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could rebuild what we once had. Maybe we could be a family again. But there was still one thing left to address. The past. The reason he left in the first place. I couldn't ignore it. I had to know. One evening, as we sat together on the couch after Lily had gone to bed, I turned to him. Why did you leave? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He stiffened, his eyes darting away from mine. He had been avoiding the question for weeks, but I couldn't let it go any longer. I need to know. He looked back at me, his eyes filled with regret. I was scared, he said quietly. Scared that I wasn't enough. Scared that I would let you down. And I thought leaving would be the best thing for you. His words hit me like a slap. Leaving was the worst thing you could have done, I said, my voice trembling with emotion. I needed you. We needed you. He looked down, ashamed. I know, he said softly. I'll never forgive myself for what I did. But I want to make it right. I want to be there for you. For Lily. I felt the weight of his words, and for the first time, I saw the man I had fallen in love with. The man who was willing to admit his mistakes and take responsibility for them. Maybe, just maybe, we could move forward. Maybe, just maybe, we could be a family again. I could feel the tension still lingering in the air as we sat together in the living room, the silence between us stretching long enough that it became almost unbearable. Lily was playing in the corner, blissfully unaware of the heavy conversation happening between us. I had given him a chance. I had allowed him to be a part of our lives again, and so far, he had shown up. He had done everything right. But there was still something inside me that wasn't sure I could completely trust him again. The past was a weight I carried with me every day. The memory of him leaving, the silence, the months of wondering where he had gone, if he was ever coming back. It all haunted me, no matter how much I tried to move forward. And now, here he was, sitting in front of me, the man who had once been everything to me, asking for another chance. But this time, the stakes were higher. It wasn't just about us anymore. It was about Lily, the little girl who had never known him as a father, the little girl who had spent her entire life without the man who was supposed to be her protector, her guide. Sarah, he said softly, breaking the silence that had settled between us. I know it's not enough. I know that showing up and saying the right things doesn't erase the past, but I need you to understand something. I looked at him, trying to read the sincerity in his eyes. I've been living with this guilt every day. I've been living with the regret of leaving you, of walking away from both of you. And I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for a chance to make it right. His words hit me harder than I expected. I had heard them before, but this time they felt different. I could see the pain in his eyes, the regret that had taken root deep inside of him. But could I really believe that he was truly changed? Could I allow him to be a part of our lives again? I had to be sure. What exactly do you want from me? I asked, my voice low, barely above a whisper. He took a deep breath, his hands shaking slightly as he ran them through his hair. I want to be the man you need me to be, the father Lily deserves, the partner you need. He paused, as if collecting his thoughts. I know I can't undo what I've done, but I want to prove to you that I'm not the same person I was before. I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. I looked at him for a long moment, trying to process everything he had said. He had come back into our lives, but I had to know that this wasn't just a temporary fix. He couldn't just walk in and out of our lives whenever he pleased. He couldn't keep putting us through the same heartbreak. I need more than words, you know, I said, my voice barely audible. You can say all the right things, but actions speak louder. You've left us before, and I can't go through that again. Lily can't go through that again. He nodded, his eyes filled with determination. I know, and I'm going to show you that I'm here for the long haul. I'll prove it. I'll do whatever it takes. There was something in his voice, something that told me he was being genuine. But was it enough? Could I let go of the past? Let go of the fear that had been building up inside of me for so long? It wasn't easy. It wasn't something I could just forgive overnight. But watching him sit there, watching him look at Lily the way he did, with love and longing in his eyes, made me wonder if it was possible. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. But it wouldn't happen overnight. It would take time, patience, and a lot of trust. I'm not promising that it's going to be easy, I said finally, my voice firm. I'm not promising that I'm going to trust you right away. But I'm willing to try. For Lily. He reached for my hand then, his grip gentle but firm. That's all I need, Sarah. A chance to prove that I'm here to stay. A chance to be the father she deserves. I looked at him for a long moment, my heart heavy with doubt and hope all at once. This was the beginning of something new, something fragile, and we both knew it. But as I looked at Lily, who was now standing in front of us, a big smile on her face, I knew that I couldn't let fear hold me back. Not for her. Not for the life we could still have. Let's take it one step at a time, I said quietly. That's all we can do. He smiled, the first real smile I had seen from him in years. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. A new beginning. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a small spark of hope. Maybe this time, we could make it work. I watched as he sat down on the couch, his eyes fixed on the floor, deep in thought. It had been a week since we had agreed to give this a real chance, since we had agreed to take things one step at a time. But every day felt like a new test. I could see how hard he was trying, and I wanted to believe in him. But the scars of the past were still fresh. I kept reminding myself that he was here for the right reasons, that he truly wanted to be part of Lily's life. But even as I reminded myself of these things, a small voice inside me kept asking if I was being naive. Could he really change? Could he truly be the father Lily needed after all these years? And what about me? Could I let go of the hurt, the disappointment, and allow myself to trust him again? I didn't know the answers to those questions, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep living in the past. For Lily's sake, I had to try to move forward. I turned to look at him, sitting there on the couch, his posture slumped. What's going through your mind? I asked, my voice soft but steady. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with vulnerability. I'm trying to figure out how I can make this right, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I've spent so many years regretting what I did, and now I don't know if I'm doing enough. I don't know if I'm enough. His words hit me harder than I expected. I could see the genuine remorse in his eyes, the pain of realizing how much time he had missed. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, that rebuilding trust was going to take time, but I couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could build something new, something stronger. You're here now, I said softly. That's a start, but it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. He nodded, his eyes never leaving mine. I know, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'll prove it to you, Sarah. I'll prove it to both of you. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure what else to say. But then Lily ran into the room, her face lit up with excitement. Mommy, guess what? She exclaimed, running over to me. I made a drawing of me, you, and Daddy. Look, she handed me the crayon drawing, her smile so wide it made my heart swell. It was a simple picture, just stick figures, but it was enough to make me pause. Enough to make me see that maybe this could work. I looked at the drawing for a moment before turning my gaze to him. He was looking at Lily, his expression softening as he took in the picture. It was like he was seeing her for the first time, really seeing her. I couldn't help but feel a pang of emotion. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about the future we could create for her, the family we could be. But it wasn't going to be easy. Lily had already been through so much, and I wasn't sure how long it would take for her to trust him completely. She had been without him for so long. She had grown used to having just me, and now, here he was, trying to step back into our lives. It's beautiful, sweetheart, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I love it. Lily beamed, her eyes shining with pride. You'll keep it forever, right? She asked, her voice full of hope. I nodded, my heart swelling in my chest. Of course, sweetheart. I'll keep it forever. I glanced over at him again, and this time, I saw something different in his eyes. Something stronger. He wasn't just trying to be part of Lily's life. He was trying to be part of ours again. Sarah, he said quietly, his voice steady. I don't expect you to trust me overnight. I know it's going to take time, but I want you to know that I'm here for both of you. I'll do whatever it takes to be the father she deserves. The partner you deserve. His words were simple, but they carried weight. I could feel the sincerity in his voice. He meant it. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could make it work. I took a deep breath and looked at Lily, then back at him. We'll take it one step at a time, I said softly. But I'm willing to try. His face lit up with a smile, and I felt something shift between us. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was a start. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were finally moving in the right direction. Maybe this time, we could build something real, something lasting. For Lily, for all of us. I woke up to the sound of sunlight streaming through the window, the warmth of a new day filling the room. I had always loved mornings, the quiet that came before the world fully woke up. But today, the quiet felt different. Today, everything felt different. It had been a few weeks since we had decided to give this another chance. The man who had left us, the man who had once been everything to me, was now a part of our lives again. And slowly, bit by bit, he was proving that he was serious. But with every new day, I couldn't shake the lingering doubt. Was I doing the right thing? Could we really rebuild what we had lost? Could Lily trust him again? Could I? I pushed the thoughts away as I got out of bed and went to the kitchen to start breakfast. Lily was still asleep, a peaceful smile on her face as she lay curled up in bed. She had been so happy lately, so full of life. She laughed more, played more, and even started asking more questions about the past, about him. And every time she asked, it made my heart ache. She wanted to know more about the man she had never known, about the father who had been missing from her life for so long. I had been avoiding those questions, not wanting to open up old wounds. But as I set the table and started preparing breakfast, I knew I couldn't keep hiding from the truth. It was time for us to face the past, together. After breakfast, as we were cleaning up, Lily looked at me with those wide, innocent eyes, her voice full of curiosity. Mommy, she said, her words hesitant. Why don't you tell me more about Daddy? Why did he leave? I froze, the plate in my hand slipping slightly. I hadn't expected this question, not so soon. But I couldn't lie to her. Not anymore. Lily, I said softly, kneeling down so I could meet her gaze. Sometimes people make mistakes. They get scared, or they don't know what to do. And sometimes, they make the wrong choice. But that doesn't mean they don't love you. She looked at me for a long moment, as if trying to understand. So, Daddy left because he was scared? I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes, baby. He was scared. And he made a mistake. But he's here now. He's trying to make things right. Lily seemed to accept my answer, though I could see the doubt in her eyes. She wasn't quite sure how to feel about all of this. And honestly, neither was I. Just then, the doorbell rang, pulling me out of my thoughts. I walked to the door and opened it to find him standing there, a nervous but hopeful look on his face. Morning, he said quietly, holding up a small bouquet of flowers. For you. For Lily. My heart skipped a beat as I took the flowers from him. It was such a simple gesture, but it meant more than I could put into words. Thank you, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He smiled softly, the warmth in his eyes reassuring me for just a moment. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, he continued. About proving myself. I want to show you both that I'm here to stay, that I'm not going anywhere. I nodded, my emotions tangled. He had been showing up, doing everything right. But there was still a part of me that wondered if it was enough. It's not just about showing up, I said quietly. It's about being here, being present, for both of us. And Lily needs more than just promises. He nodded, his expression serious. I know, he said, his voice filled with sincerity. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes. He stepped closer, glancing at Lily, who was standing in the doorway behind me, still holding the flowers. She looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and caution. He knelt down to her level, his eyes softening as he spoke. Lily, he said gently, I know I wasn't here when you needed me, but I want you to know that I'm here now. I want to be the father you deserve. Lily didn't say anything at first. She just stared at him, her little hands gripping the flowers tightly. But after a moment, she slowly nodded. Okay, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't much, but it was a start. It was more than I could have hoped for. I stood there, watching the two of them, the man I had once loved and the little girl who had grown up without him. And in that moment, I knew that this was only the beginning. It wasn't going to be easy, but maybe, just maybe, we could make it work. Later that day, as I watched him spend time with Lily, playing games and reading books with her, I couldn't help but feel a shift. He was trying. He wasn't perfect, and he wasn't asking for forgiveness right away. But he was here, and he was showing up. That was more than he had ever done before. I couldn't help but wonder, for the first time in a long time, if maybe, just maybe, we could have the family we once dreamed of. Maybe we could build something new, something better. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be quick. But I was willing to try. For Lily. For us. I woke up the next morning to the soft sound of Lily humming in the kitchen. It was still early, the sunlight creeping through the blinds, casting a warm glow across the room. I had barely slept the night before, my mind racing with thoughts of him and everything we had talked about. It was only a few days since we decided to give this another try, but every moment felt like a test. Could we really make this work? Could we rebuild our family after all the years of pain, silence, and regret? I had to admit, I was starting to see glimpses of the man I once knew in him. He wasn't perfect, but he was here, trying. And I wasn't sure if that was enough. As I stepped into the kitchen, I saw him sitting at the table with Lily. She was sitting on his lap, and they were giggling over a book she had picked out. The sight warmed my heart, but at the same time, it sent a wave of uncertainty through me. He was trying. He was present. But was he ready? Was he really ready to be the father he needed to be for her? And could I ever truly trust him again? Good morning, he said, looking up from the book with a soft smile. I made pancakes for everyone. He gestured to the plate stacked high with pancakes, syrup, and fresh fruit. Lily's face lit up when she saw me. Look, Mommy, Daddy made pancakes. I smiled back at her, my heart aching with the tenderness of the moment. That's great, sweetie, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I sat down at the table, the warm smell of pancakes filling the room, but the weight of the situation was never far from my mind. He had made breakfast. He had spent time with Lily, and for the first time in years, they were getting to know each other. But there was still so much more to prove. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking a tightrope, trying to balance between hope and fear. You're really trying, I said softly, looking at him across the table. He met my gaze, his eyes filled with sincerity. I am, he replied. And I know I have a long way to go, but I'm here. For both of you. I nodded, trying to hold back the flood of emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Lily too. She needed to see that he was someone she could rely on, someone who would always be there for her. And I needed to know that I wasn't making a mistake. The next few days passed in a blur of small moments. He kept his promises, showing up, being present, spending time with Lily. He helped her with her homework, took her to the park, and made dinner for us. It felt like he was really trying. But I was still cautious. I couldn't just erase the years of hurt, the years of wondering where he had gone and why he hadn't come back. I watched them together, and part of me felt hope rising in my chest. Maybe this could work. But another part of me was still holding back, afraid of getting hurt again. I knew he had his demons, and I wasn't sure if he was truly ready to face them. One evening, as we sat on the couch, watching TV after dinner, Lily fell asleep in his arms. It was a quiet, peaceful moment. I looked at him, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something shift. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was the realization that we could have a future together. But it wasn't just about us anymore. It was about Lily too. She deserved a father who would always be there for her. She deserved stability, love, and security. I needed to know that he could give that to her. He looked at me, sensing my unease. I know I have to earn your trust, he said quietly. And I know it's not going to be easy. But I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here, every step of the way. His words were simple, but they carried weight. I had to believe him. I had to let myself believe that this could be the beginning of something new. For all of us. I'm still not sure, I said softly, my voice breaking. I'm not sure I can trust you completely. But I want to. For her. He nodded, his expression filled with understanding. I'll prove it to you, Sarah. I'll show you that I'm here for the long haul. I'll prove to you both that I can be the man you need. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I saw the man who had been missing for so long. The man who was trying. The man who was willing to fight for us. I didn't know if it would be enough. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to give up on this. On him. On us. And neither was he. I stood in the dimly lit office, the silence between us almost deafening. The weight of everything that had happened over the last few weeks pressed down on me. We had come so far, and yet, I still wasn't sure if I could fully trust him. He had promised to be there for us, to make up for the lost years, but could he really change? Could I believe in him again? My heart was heavy with doubt, but when I looked at him, sitting there with his head in his hands, I saw something different. For the first time in a long while, I saw vulnerability in him. It wasn't something I had expected, but it was something I needed. Sarah, he said quietly, breaking the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. I know I've hurt you. I know I've let you down in ways I can never take back. But I want you to know that I am here. I am here for you, for Lily, and I'm not going anywhere. His words were soft, but there was a sincerity in his voice that I hadn't heard before. And yet, my heart still ached. I had heard those kinds of promises before. He had promised me everything once, and he had walked away. So many years had passed since then, and so much had changed. I wasn't sure I could ever go back to the way things were. I want to believe you, I said, my voice trembling. But it's not that simple. It's not just about you and me. It's about Lily. She's been through so much already, and I won't let her get hurt again. He nodded, his expression softening with understanding. I know, he said quietly. I understand. And I'm not asking you to forget the past. I'm asking you to give me a chance to show you that I can be the man you need, the father Lily deserves. I looked at him for a long moment, my heart torn between the desire to believe him and the fear of being hurt again. He was trying. I could see that. But was it enough? Could I let go of the past and open myself up to him again? I can't promise anything, I said finally, my voice barely a whisper. But I'm willing to try. For her. He looked at me, with something like relief in his eyes, and for a moment, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what we had lost. Later that evening, as we sat together in the living room, Lily curled up between us, I realized how far we had come. It hadn't been easy. There had been moments of doubt, of fear, but there had also been moments of connection, of understanding. We were still taking it one day at a time, but for the first time in years, I felt like we had a chance. As I watched him interact with Lily, I saw a man who was trying, who was doing everything he could to make up for the lost time. She wasn't sure what to make of it yet. She was still figuring out who he was, but she was starting to see the man I had once loved. The man who had disappeared for so long. Can we go to the park tomorrow? Lily asked suddenly, looking up at both of us. She had been asking about the things they could do together, the things he could teach her. And for the first time, I saw a glimpse of the father she deserved. Of course, he said, his voice warm and genuine. We'll go to the park, and we'll spend the whole day together, just the three of us. As Lily smiled, I felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was a start. The next few weeks passed in a blur of small moments. Picking Lily up from school, spending weekends together, learning to trust again. He showed up when he said he would, and slowly, Lily began to warm to him. It wasn't instant, and there were still moments of doubt, but I could see the change in both of them. He was trying, and that meant everything. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, I caught myself watching them, the two of them laughing together over something silly. I could see the bond forming between them, a bond that I had once feared would never happen. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to believe that maybe this could work. Maybe, just maybe, we could be a family again. But there was still one thing left unsaid, one thing that still lingered in. The air between us. The past. The reason he left in the first place. I had to know. I had to hear it from him. And as I watched him, as I saw the man he had become, I knew it was time. Why did you leave? I asked softly, my voice breaking the comfortable silence that had settled over the room. He stopped, his fork halfway to his mouth, and looked at me. For a moment, he said nothing, his expression clouded with the weight of the past. Finally, he spoke. I was scared, he said quietly. Scared that I wasn't enough. Scared that I couldn't be the man you needed, the father she needed. And I thought leaving would be easier than staying and failing. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had always wondered why he had left, why he hadn't fought for us. And now, finally, I had the answer. But even as the pain washed over me, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about the future. And for the first time in years, I was willing to try again. You weren't the only one who was scared, I said softly. But we're here now. We're here, and we're moving forward. Together. And for the first time, I believed it. We were moving forward. Together. I stood at the doorway, watching as Lily played in the living room, her laughter filling the air with warmth. The house felt different now, more alive, more like home. The tension that had hung between us for so long had slowly started to fade. We had faced the past, we had healed, and now, we were moving forward. Together. I turned to look at him, the man who had once been the center of my world and had been lost to me for so long. He stood there, a soft smile on his face, his eyes filled with a quiet determination. He wasn't perfect, but then again, neither was I. We had both made mistakes. But the difference now was that we were trying. We were here. And that meant everything. It's crazy, isn't it? I said softly, my voice breaking the comfortable silence between us. How much has changed in such a short time? He looked at me, his eyes filled with understanding. It is crazy, he replied quietly. But it feels right. For the first time in a long time, it feels like we're where we're supposed to be. I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. We had come so far, and yet, there was still so much more to do. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't afraid to take the next step, whatever it was. We were a family, and we were going to make it work. As we stood there, side by side, I could feel the past slipping away, the hurt, the anger, the fear, all of it fading into the background. What mattered now was the future. Our future. Together. Mommy. Lily called from the living room, her voice full of excitement. Come play with me. I smiled, my heart swelling with love. I walked over to her, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. I felt lighter, freer. He followed me into the living room, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. Lily ran up to him, throwing her arms around his waist. Daddy, can we go to the park today? She asked, her eyes sparkling with hope. He bent down and hugged her tightly, his voice full of warmth. Of course, sweetheart. We'll go to the park, and we'll make a whole day of it. As I watched them together, I realized that this was what we had been working toward. This was the life I had dreamed of, the family I had always wanted. It wasn't going to be easy, and there would be challenges ahead, but I wasn't afraid of them anymore. Because we were in this together. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a future to look forward to. A future filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a new beginning. And in that moment, I knew we were going to make it. We were going to be a family again, and nothing else mattered. We were ready for whatever came next. This touching story takes you on an emotional journey of a family that has faced unimaginable pain and separation. A mother, her daughter, and a man from the past, coming together through love and forgiveness. As the father returns after years of absence, he must prove he is worthy of the family he left behind. This touching story explores the challenges of rebuilding trust, overcoming the scars of the past, and creating a new beginning for all involved. With every step, they realize that family is not defined by blood, but by those who are willing to stay, to fight, and to love. The touching stories of their shared experiences show that even the deepest wounds can heal when love and effort are present. Watch as this touching story unfolds, revealing unexpected twists and deep emotional connections that will leave you inspired and moved. These touching stories remind us of the importance of second chances and the power of love to transform lives. No matter the obstacles, the willingness to move forward together creates a path to healing. This touching story teaches us that love, trust, and hope can rebuild what was once lost. A story of redemption, a story of family, and a story of love that will leave you thinking long after the final scene.